I take the same train every day, same line, same stations, same automated voice announcing each stop in the same calm, emotionless tone. After a while, you stop listening. That's why I noticed it immediately when the voice said something different. It was just past midnight. The train was mostly empty, one or two passengers per car, all of us quiet, half asleep, keeping to ourselves. The train slowed, and the announcement came on. Next stop, Ashford. I frowned. There was no Ashford. I knew every station on that line. I'd lived there for years. Ashford wasn't one of them. It wasn't a renamed stop. It wasn't an old station either. I looked up, expecting someone else to react. No one did. The train lights flickered as we passed through a long stretch of darkness between stations. The usual city glow outside the windows was gone. The train slowed more than it should have. Then it stopped. The doors stayed closed. Silence filled the car. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. Even the hum of the train felt muted, like it was holding its breath. Then the announcement played again. Not the same voice. This one was quieter, closer. Ashford Station, please exit here. My phone buzzed, no signal. I stood up without meaning to. That's when I noticed the other passengers. They were staring straight ahead, completely still, no blinking, no shifting, like mannequins placed in seats. The doors slid open. Cold air rushed in. Outside wasn't a platform. It was a long concrete tunnel, wider than any service tunnel I'd ever seen. Dim lights lined the walls, buzzing softly, and people were standing out there, waiting. Their faces were wrong, too pale, too still, all of them looking directly at the open doors. No one inside the train moved, except me. I stepped back, heart pounding. The doors stayed open longer than usual. The voice spoke again, almost impatient. This is your stop. Something grabbed the edge of the door from the outside, a hand, thin, gray. The fingers curled inward, like it was testing the strength of the door. I ran. I didn't know where, just toward the other end of the car. The doors slammed shut behind me. The train lurched forward. Lights snapped back to normal. Noise returned. People shifted, blinked, checked their phones, like nothing had happened. The next announcement played, the correct one, the station I was supposed to get off at. When I finally exited, I asked the conductor about Ashford. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "That stop hasn't existed in decades. I don't take the late train anymore, and every time I hear the announcements glitch, I listen closely, because I'm terrified one day it'll say my stop isn't coming, and that I already missed it." It started with noises, not loud ones, not bangs or crashes, soft sounds, scratching, shifting, something careful. I lived alone in a small house, old enough that I blamed everything on age. Pipes expanding, wood settling, rats maybe. That's what I told myself. The sounds always came from the same place, inside the walls near my bedroom, always at night, always after midnight. I called an exterminator. He checked the attic, the crawl space, the vents. No signs of animals. "No droppings," he said. "No nests. You're good." The noises didn't stop. They changed. Instead of scratching, I heard movement. Slow, deliberate, like someone crawling. I started sleeping with the TV on. Not for the noise, for the company. One night I woke up because the house felt wrong, too quiet, no hum from the fridge, no distant traffic. Even the TV had gone to static. That's when I heard breathing, not in the room, in the wall, right behind my headboard. I lay frozen, counting breaths that weren't mine. Slow in, slow out, then a soft tap from the inside. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning I noticed something new. The vent cover in the hallway was loose, just slightly crooked. I unscrewed it. Behind it was darkness and something else. The smell, sweat, old clothes, something human. I called the police. They searched the house and found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no damage, no one hiding. One officer suggested stress, another suggested sleep paralysis. They left. That night I locked my bedroom door. Around 2 a.m. the noises came back, but they weren't in the walls anymore. They were above me. The ceiling creaked as weight shifted. Slow footsteps. Bare. Then something slid down inside the wall. Fast this time. A thud behind my bed. My doorknob rattled. Once. Then stopped. A voice whispered through the wall. Soft. Hoarse. "I know you're awake," I screamed. The police came back. This time they tore the walls open. They found a narrow space between the studs, wider than it should have been. Modified, hollowed out. Inside were blankets, food wrappers, bottles. Someone had been living there. Watching, they never found him. But they told me something I still can't forget. The space ended right behind my headboard. No insulation, no barrier, just wood and scratch marks, facing inward. I moved out the next day, but sometimes when the room is quiet, I still feel it. The certainty that walls aren't meant to be hollow, and that someone, somewhere, learned how to live inside them. My dog stopped going into one room of the house. It wasn't sudden. At first, he just hesitated. He'd stand in the doorway, lean forward slightly, then back away like he'd hit an invisible wall. His tail stayed low, his ears pulled back. I laughed it off. Dogs are weird, I told myself. Smells change, shadows move, old houses creak. But then he refused completely. No matter what I did, he wouldn't cross the threshold. I tried calling him in, tried tossing his favorite treat onto the floor. He watched it land. Then he looked up at me, not scared, not confused, warning me. That room used to be my spare bedroom, nothing special. No attic access, no crawl space, just a bed, a dresser, and a closet that never quite shut all the way. After my dog stopped entering, the room felt off, colder than the rest of the house, quieter, like sound didn't move correctly inside it. One night, I noticed the door was open. I was sure I'd closed it. My dog stood at the end of the hallway, staring at the doorway, hackles raised. He wasn't growling. He was shaking. I stepped closer. The air changed the moment I crossed the hall. It felt thicker, pressed against my skin, like walking into deep water. My dog whimpered behind me. I turned around to reassure him and froze. He hadn't followed. He never did anymore. That's when I heard it. A soft sound, barely there. Breathing, not heavy, not rushed, slow, patient, coming from inside the room. I told myself it was the house settling, the vents, my imagination. Then the closet door creaked wider, just an inch. I backed out of the room without turning around. The next morning, I closed the door and stacked a chair under the handle. That night, something knocked. Once. Then again. From the inside. My dog lost it, barking, snarling, pulling away from the hallway like something was dragging him backward. I didn't sleep. The knocking stopped around 3 a.m. In the morning, the door was open. The chair lay on its side. Inside the room, the carpet was disturbed. Long marks, like something heavy had been dragged across it. Leading to the doorway, I sealed the room after that. Locked it, covered the door. My dog relaxed, ate again, slept near me. But sometimes late at night, he lifts his head and stares down the hallway, at the door. Because even though it won't come out anymore, it still knows where we are, and my dog refuses to forget. The mall sounded different after closing. Not quiet, empty. Every noise had room to echo. My footsteps, the buzz of the lights, the distant hum of escalators cooling down. I worked security, overnight shift. Same route every night. Same stores, same locked gates. At least that's what I thought. Around midnight, I heard footsteps. Not behind me, not ahead, somewhere, parallel. Like someone was walking the corridor next to mine, just out of sight. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I laughed it off and kept moving. That's when I noticed the store lights. One of them was on. A small clothing shop that should have been dark. Gate half lowered. Lights glowing like it was still open for business. I checked the log. That store was closed at 9. I lifted the gate. The inside was untouched. No customers, no staff, no mess. But the mirrors at the back of the store were fogged, like someone had been standing there breathing. I radioed it in. Static answered. That's when the mall music started. The soft instrumental playlist they play during shopping hours, except it wasn't supposed to turn on until morning, and it was playing distorted, slower, warped. I followed the sound toward the food court. Halfway there, I saw movement in a storefront reflection, a figure walking behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back at the glass, the reflection hadn't turned. It was still walking toward me. I broke into a jog. The mall felt wrong now. Too long. Corridors stretching farther than they should. Store signs flickering with names I didn't recognize. Then I heard the announcement system crackle. A voice came through. Not robotic, not automated. It said, "The mall is now closed." Pause, then, "Please remain inside." The lights went out. Emergency glow only. I ran for the exit. The doors were locked. That's when I heard footsteps again. This time, right behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to, because the glass doors reflected it perfectly. It looked like me. Same uniform, same posture, standing just inches away, smiling. I felt a hand rest on my shoulder. Cold, heavy, and right next to my ear, a voice whispered, "You always leave so early." I realized then why the night shift log had extra entries, why the mall never felt empty. Some of us clock out, some of us stay. I wasn't looking for an abandoned house, that's what made it worse. I was scrolling through rental listings late one night, half asleep, not really expecting to find anything. Prices were too high everywhere. Bad photos, worse locations. Then I saw it. A small house on the edge of town, 2 bedrooms, cheap rent, normal description. No warnings, no notes, no mention of abandonment. Just one line stood out. Recently vacated. I scheduled a viewing for the next afternoon. When I arrived, the neighborhood felt wrong immediately. The houses around it were lived in. Cars in driveways, lights on, someone mowing a lawn. But this house sat quietly, like it wasn't part of the street. The front door was unlocked. That should have been the first sign. Inside, the air was stale, but not dusty. The furniture was gone, but the house didn't feel empty. No cobwebs, no signs of long neglect. The power worked. The water ran. Someone had been here recently. I walked through slowly, checking each room. Everything looked normal until I reached the second bedroom. The carpet was flattened in one spot, like a bed had been there for years. But there was no bed, just an outline. And the walls around it were covered in faint scratches, vertical, uneven, like someone had dragged their fingers upward over and over again. I told myself it was old damage. Then I noticed the calendar on the wall. It was flipped to last month, not years ago, not outdated, last month. I left and called the landlord. He answered on the second ring. I asked how long the house had been empty. There was a pause, then he said, "It's not." I laughed, thinking he meant paperwork. He didn't laugh back. People move in, he said. They just don't stay long. I asked why. Another pause, then quieter. Because the house doesn't like being empty. That night, curiosity won. I drove back. The lights were on. I knew I hadn't turned them on. The front door was still unlocked. Inside, the air felt warmer now, lived in. I heard movement upstairs, slow footsteps. Careful. I froze at the bottom of the stairs. Then a voice called down to me, not threatening, not angry, relieved. Are you here to stay this time? I ran. The next day, the listing was gone. The house wasn't marked abandoned, because it never was. Someone was always there, waiting for the next person to call it home. Every night, around 2 in the morning, my dog would sit up. Not all the way, just enough for his spine to stiffen and his ears to lift. And then he'd stare at the same corner of the room, the corner near the closet, the one with nothing in it. At first, I thought it was normal. Dogs hear things, pipes, rats, neighbors. I told myself that and rolled over. But it kept happening, every night, same time, same corner. He wouldn't bark, wouldn't whine, wouldn't move. I tried calling his name once. Quietly, nothing. Snapped my fingers, clapped my hands. He didn't even blink. It wasn't like he was alert. It was like he was focused, like he was watching something he recognized. On the 5th night, I got out of bed. I stood between him and the corner and waved my hand. His eyes didn't follow me. They stayed locked behind me. That's when I felt stupid for being scared of a shadowed wall in my own bedroom. So I went back to bed. The next night, he growled, low, slow, careful. Not the kind of growl he made at strangers. This one sounded controlled, like he didn't want whatever he was watching to know he was afraid. I whispered his name. Still nothing. That's when I noticed something worse. His eyes weren't fixed on the corner anymore. They were moving, tracking, slowly, across the wall, across the dresser, down toward the floor, toward my bed. My chest went tight. I pulled the blanket up without thinking, like that could help. The growl got quieter, not weaker, quieter, like a warning. I stared at the corner trying to see what he saw. There was nothing. No shadow, no movement, no sound. But my dog's eyes kept following it. When his gaze reached the edge of the mattress, he froze. His growl stopped, his tail tucked. And then he did something he'd never done before. He backed away from my bed, slowly, like he didn't want to turn his back on whatever was there. I couldn't breathe. I whispered, "What is it?" That's when the mattress dipped, just slightly, like someone had pressed a hand into it. My dog whimpered and ran from the room, left me alone. The dip moved, closer to my legs. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel the weight shift. And then, right next to my ear, I heard breathing, not mine, not my dog's. Slow, patient, like it had been waiting for me to notice. Then I realized something. My dog wasn't watching it. He was watching me.